We have divided this Mukesh Ambani's success story into 5 parts to cover his success at different stages of life, starting from his early life, dropping out from Stanford University, split between the Ambani brothers, to taking Reliance Industries to new heights. Mukesh Ambani was born on 19 April 1957 in Yemen. This was because his late father and Indian legend Dhirubhai Ambani then worked as a petrol station attendant there. The family soon moved to India, where their standard of living improved as they now lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. It was a good time from here, as his father successfully set up his business in the textile industry under the brand Vimal. His father soon purchased a 14-story building for the family to live in. Despite this, his father believed that it was best for Mukesh to have a normal childhood. He would use public transport to go to school and never received any allowance. He went on to graduate as a chemical engineer from the Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. Part 2, dropping out for Reliance. Mukesh went on to pursue his MBA from Stanford. It was at the same time that his father had successfully beaten Tata and Birla to secure a license for PFY, polyester filament yarn, manufacturing. His father always believed that real-life skills were harnessed through experience, not by sitting in a classroom. Due to this belief, he asked Mukesh to drop out and join him in setting up the plant. UKESH played an important role in setting up a plant that was way ahead of its time. This was possible because his father always considered him as a business partner and allowed him to contribute without the experience. He went on to further the Reliance footprint by establishing the world's largest petroleum refinery at Jamnagar, Gujarat. Mukesh, however, did not stop there, as he also set up the telecom arm Reliance Communication. Part 3, Anil vs Mukesh Ambani. To everyone's surprise, Dhirubhai Ambani passed away from a stroke in 2002. This was the second time he had suffered a stroke. The first time was in 1986 post, when the company was run by brothers Mukesh and Anil. Their father, however, passed away without a will. Soon cracks began to develop in the brothers' relationship, which blew up to become a public feud. Their mother decided it was time for the assets of the company to be split between the two brothers. This was necessary to end the feud. Mukesh received oil and gas, refining, and petrochemical companies in the split, whereas Anil got what was called the Rising Sun companies, electricity, telecom, and financial services segment. This was a blow to Mukesh, as Anil received some companies that Mukesh had worked hard to create and which had a higher growth rate. Mukesh couldn't even enter these industries, as the split also came with a non-compete clause. Mukesh, however, saw his opportunity to get rid of the clause post the crisis of 2008. Anil had found himself in trouble, as many of his projects were stuck and required gas at reasonable rates. Mukesh stepped in to supply the gas on the condition that the non-compete clause was annulled. This, however, cannot be mistaken for brotherly love. What ensued soon after was Mukesh playing a hand to ensure that the deal between Anil's ROM and South Africa's Mountain never took place. This deal would have catapulted RCom to become one of the world's largest mobile companies. Mukesh's quest for the telecom sector was clearly not for business purposes alone. After all, RCom was a company whose creation and early growth were owed to Mukesh. Sadly, he had unjustly lost the company in the split. Mukesh spent the next 5 years pouring money he earned from his oil and petrochemical business to create a competitive company in the telecom sector. This seemed to be a crazy decision at the time, as the telecom sector was already dominated by a number of giants competing for every morsel in the industry. Part 4. Mukesh's Jio is here to take over. Eventually, Mukesh launched Jio with 4G. What followed was Jio offering the lowest prices possible in the industry, making them impossible to compete with. Mukesh's business acumen was clearly visible here. He took advantage of the industry, as it had for years benefited from expensive products in return for poor 2G and 3G services. Jio even forced other players now to offer their products at lower margins. The pricing war that followed soon saw Anil's Reliance Communication wash away. However, Anil wasn't the only one affected. Giants like Bharti Airtel soon realized that Jio was there to dominate. In addition, unlike others in the sector, Jio had deep pockets thanks to Reliance's petrol business. Vodafone and Idea barely even managed to survive, and their position hasn't improved since. It took the combined efforts of the telecom sector 25 years to build a 2G network across India. It is noteworthy that Jio managed to do this in just 3 years thanks to Mukesh's drive and successful execution. Part 5. Taking Reliance to New Heights. Mukesh Ambani successfully diversified Reliance into a conglomerate that owns businesses across India engaged in energy, petrochemicals, textiles, natural resources, retail, and telecommunications. Apart from setting up telecom giant Jio, Mukesh Ambani is also slowly venturing into the retail and e-commerce industry by partnering with Mark Zuckerberg's WhatsApp. In April 2020, Facebook invested $5.7 billion in Reliance Jio by acquiring a 9.99% stake at a pre-money valuation of $65.95 billion. Further to deepen its roots in the retail segment, Reliance Retail Ventures Limited, RRVL, a subsidiary of Reliance Industries, also acquired Kishore Biani's Future Group in a 24,713 crore rupees deal, which is currently engaged in a legal battle with Amazon. RIL also acquired a majority stake in online pharmacy, NetMeds, for about 620 crore rupees in the same month. Under his leadership, Reliance became the first Indian company to exceed $100 billion in market capitalization. It is also currently the most profitable company in India. The company has been responsible for almost 5% of the revenue the Government of India earns from customs and excise duty. The growth also propelled him to become the richest man in Asia. His net worth as of 2021 stands at $76.3 billion. Although being India's richest man for several years now, Mukesh never rested on his laurels and still doesn't. It can be seen in his pursuit to turn Reliance into a zero-carbon company. This is despite Reliance's petrochemical being one of its strongest pillars. Ambani is also often heard saying, "Data is the new oil." This highlights a shift in his focus toward the tech sector.